Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the orbital assembly station, watching as the final sections of humanity's greatest achievement took shape against the backdrop of Earth. The Horizon wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's statement to the cosmos, a vessel that defied conventional thinking about what was possible in space engineering. The signal had arrived 3 years ago, the clear, structured message from the stars that confirmed humanity wasn't alone. But unlike the scenarios imagined in countless stories, it wasn't a welcome message or a warning. It was something far more interesting, a bureaucratic notification, informing Earth that it had been categorized as a developing civilization and would be contacted when deemed sufficiently advanced. Sarah remembered the day the translation came through, how the UN Security Council had fallen silent as the implications became clear. Humanity, it seemed, was being patronized by the stars themselves. The response was characteristically human. If they thought Earth was just another primitive world to be guided and controlled, humanity would show them otherwise. The Horizon was born from that moment of collective determination. 2 kilometers of advanced composites and breakthrough technologies, powered by antimatter engines that had been purely theoretical before the project began. The ship incorporated every major scientific advancement of the last century, and quite a few that had been developed specifically for this mission. Dr. Chen, they're ready for the final inspection. Sarah turned to face her assistant, David Okafor, whose dark eyes sparkled with the same excitement she felt. Engineering reports the quantum communications array is fully integrated. As they made their way through the station's corridors, Sarah reflected on how the project had transformed human society. Old rivalries had been set aside, resources redirected, and brilliant minds from every nation had come together. The Horizon wasn't just Earth's first interstellar vessel. It was a testament to what humanity could achieve when united by a common purpose. The inspection team moved through the ship's cavernous interior, past laboratories equipped with technology that would have seemed like magic a decade ago, past hydroponics bays that could feed thousands, and past defense systems that they hoped would never be needed, but had been included because humanity had learned to hope for the best while preparing for the worst. Final systems check complete, announced Chief Engineer Yuki Tanaka, her holographic display showing all systems in the green. We're ready for crew boarding to begin. Sarah nodded, knowing that this moment would be remembered in human history. The crew of 10,000, scientists, engineers, diplomats, and their families, would begin arriving tomorrow. They represented the best of humanity, chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to adapt, to think creatively, to face the unknown with determination rather than fear. The message from space had asked humanity to wait patiently for contact. Instead, humanity had decided to make contact on its own terms. The Horizon wasn't just a ship, it was a city in space, a self-sustaining world that could support its population indefinitely. It carried libraries worth of human knowledge, art galleries, concert halls, and enough manufacturing capacity to build another ship of its size if needed. As Sarah completed her inspection, she received word that the final piece of the project had fallen into place. The quantum entanglement drive, a technology that had existed only in theoretical papers when the project began, had passed its final tests. The Horizon would be able to cross vast distances of space in ways that violated everything humanity had once thought possible about the laws of physics. Send word to the UN Secretary-General, Sarah instructed. The Horizon is ready. That evening, as she prepared her final report, Sarah thought about the message they'd received from the stars. The aliens, whoever they were, had looked at Earth's radio transmissions, its primitive chemical rockets, its struggling first steps into space, and had decided humanity needed more time to develop. They hadn't counted on human determination. They hadn't understood that telling humans to wait was the surest way to spur them into action. They hadn't realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology, but its relentless drive to exceed its own limitations. In 3 days, the Horizon would depart Earth orbit, carrying with it humanity's dreams and ambitions. They would arrive at the coordinates included in the alien message not as supplicants seeking admission to the galactic community, but as equals ready to forge their own path among the stars. Sarah closed her final report with words that would soon be transmitted across the solar system. Horizon is go for launch. Humanity's journey to the stars begins now. High Administrator Xerix of the Concordat adjusted his sensory membranes as he studied the data before him. Something was wrong with the long-range sensors. They had to be malfunctioning, because what they showed was impossible. The preliminary contact team had categorized Earth as a Class 3 developing world just 3 standard cycles ago. Such civilizations typically took centuries to advance beyond their primitive chemical propulsion systems. Yet here was something approaching the designated contact coordinates that defied all Concordat models of technological progression. The vessel, if it could be called that, was larger than anything in the Concordat fleet. Its method of propulsion was completely unknown, leaving no traditional energy signature that their sensors could detect. High Administrator, his aide Nixis interrupted, her bioluminescent patterns showing clear distress. We've received visual confirmation. The vessel appears to be of Earth origin. They're responding to our automated greeting using the same communication protocols we sent in our categorization message. Xerix felt his chromatophores pulse with disbelief. Impossible. Show me. The holographic display activated, showing the approaching vessel in all its impossible glory. 2 kilometers of gleaming metal and composite materials, its design unlike anything in the Concordat database, where Concordat ships were organic in form, following the natural patterns that billions of years of evolution had proven most efficient. This vessel was boldly geometric, almost aggressive in its artificial precision. They're requesting direct communication, Nixis reported. Their language skills appear to be perfect. They're speaking all 7 primary Concordat dialects. Xerix had overseen first contact with 12 different species during his tenure. Each had followed the carefully established protocols, arriving in humble vessels appropriate to their technological level, grateful for the Concordat's guidance. This was unprecedented. Open a channel, he ordered, composing himself for what would be the most important diplomatic exchange of his career. The holographic field shimmed, and Xerix found himself face to face with a human female. Greetings, High Administrator Xerix. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, Mission Commander of the Earth vessel Horizon. We received your message regarding future contact and decided to expedite the process. Xerix noted the subtle humor in her tone, a complexity of communication that shouldn't have been possible for a species at Earth's development level. Commander Chen, this is unexpected. Our records indicate your civilization had not yet achieved reliable interplanetary travel. Your records are out of date, she replied simply. We found your message quite motivating. Nothing spurs human innovation quite like being told to wait. As they spoke, Xerix's analysts were feeding him increasingly alarming data. The Horizon's hull was composed of materials that shouldn't have been possible to manufacture without centuries of technological development. Its power output suggested energy manipulation far beyond what any Class 3 civilization should possess. And most disturbing of all, they were detecting signs of quantum manipulation that hinted at technologies the Concordat themselves had only theorized about. Perhaps, Xerix suggested carefully, we should discuss the proper protocols for integrating new species into the galactic community. There are established procedures. With respect, Administrator, Chen interrupted, we're not here to be integrated. We're here to establish diplomatic relations as equals. The Horizon carries representatives from every nation on Earth, along with examples of our culture, science, and technology. We're prepared to demonstrate our capabilities in any way you deem appropriate. Xerix felt his secondary brain cluster struggling to process this development. The humans hadn't just advanced beyond their classification. They had shattered every model the Concordat had developed for species development. Their ship alone represented technological jumps that should have taken multiple generations. Your vessel, he began carefully, it's quite impressive. Our sensors are having difficulty analyzing its properties. Yes, Chen smiled. We noticed your scans. Our quantum shielding makes detailed analysis difficult. We'd be happy to share the basic principles involved, though some of the technology is, of course, proprietary. Proprietary. The concept sent ripples of shock through Xerx's neural network. Class 3 civilizations were supposed to be grateful for any technology shared by the Concordat, not discussing proprietary innovations of their own. As the conversation continued, Xerx began to understand that everything the Concordat had assumed about humanity was wrong. They weren't arriving as supplicants seeking admission to the galactic community. They had come prepared to negotiate as equals, and their ship, this impossible vessel that defied physics as the Concordat understood it, was proof that they had earned that right. Perhaps, Xerx found himself saying, "We should reconvene with the full Concordat Council. Your arrival represents an unprecedented situation." Of course, Chen agreed. We anticipated this might take some time. The horizon is entirely self-sufficient. We can wait as long as necessary for the Council to adjust their protocols. After all, she added with that same subtle humor, we've learned the value of patience. The Grand Chamber of the Concordat Council was designed to impress. Its crystalline walls stretched hundreds of meters high, refracting light in patterns that most species found both beautiful and subtly disorienting. The chamber's acoustics were carefully tuned to give the council members' voices a slight resonance, lending weight to their pronouncements. Every detail was calculated to remind visitors of their place in the galactic hierarchy. Dr. Sarah Chen found it rather obvious. She sat with her delegation at the presentation podium, maintaining a carefully neutral expression as Supreme Counselor Vexterra delivered what was clearly meant to be an overwhelming history of the Concordat's achievements. The massive holographic displays showed thousands of years of carefully guided species development, all under the Concordat's benevolent supervision. As you can see, Vexterra concluded, her crystalline form catching the light dramatically, the Concordat's guidance has been essential to the peaceful development of countless civilizations. Our protocols exist for good reason. Ambassador James Rodriguez, Earth's chief diplomat, leaned forward slightly. We appreciate the historical context, Supreme Counselor. However, I notice your presentation doesn't mention the Xerxes incident. A ripple of electromagnetic disturbance, the Concordat equivalent of uncomfortable murmuring, passed through the chamber. Chen hid a smile. Rodriguez hadn't spent the 3-year journey idle. He'd thoroughly studied the fragmentary data that intercepted about the Concordat's history. The Xerxes incident is not relevant to these proceedings, Vexterra stated, her crystalline surface clouding slightly. With respect, Rodriguez continued smoothly. A case where your protocols failed to prevent a civilization from developing banned technologies seems highly relevant, particularly since your solution was to quarantine their entire system. The human delegation had prepared extensively for this moment. While the Horizon's journey had captured everyone's attention with its technological achievements, the diplomatic team had been analyzing every scrap of data they could gather about the Concordat's true history. You seem very well informed, another council member observed, their gelatinous form pulsing with what the human psychologists identified as concern. The Horizon's quantum arrays are quite effective at collecting and analyzing data, Chen offered. We believe in being thorough. The implications weren't lost on the council. Humanity hadn't just matched some of their technology. They'd developed capabilities that could pierce the Concordat's most secure communications. The balance of power in this conversation wasn't what they planned. Vexterra's surface rippled as she adjusted her strategy. Perhaps we could discuss the benefits of full Concordat membership. There are many advantages to accepting our guidance. Access to our technological database, for instance. An interesting offer, Rodriguez replied. Though our preliminary analysis suggests much of that technology may be obsolete compared to our current capabilities. However, we're very interested in cultural exchange. Chen watched the council members' reactions. The humans' refusal to play their assigned role, grateful supplicants accepting the Concordat's wisdom, was clearly causing distress. Centuries of carefully maintained hierarchy were being challenged. Cultural exchange. Vex Terra echoed, trying to regain control of the conversation. Of course, under proper supervision. We've prepared a demonstration, Chen interrupted, nodding to Dr. Yuki Tanaka. The Horizon's chief engineer activated a small device on their podium. The chamber's carefully tuned acoustics filled with music, a fusion of classical earth instruments with harmonics specifically designed to resonate with the various auditory and sensory systems of the council species. It was a composition created during the journey, a demonstration of humanity's ability to understand and adapt to alien perspectives. Several council members visibly responded to the music, their forms moving in unconscious appreciation. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The composition was beautiful, but it was also a warning. Humanity could understand them well enough to create art that moved them, and well enough to identify their weaknesses. Remarkable, one of the elder council members admitted. You've studied our species quite thoroughly. We believe understanding is the foundation of true cooperation, Rodriguez replied, which is why we hope the Concordat will reconsider its traditional approach. Earth isn't seeking admission to a hierarchy. We're proposing a genuine partnership. The council chamber fell silent as the implications of Earth's position became clear. The humans weren't rejecting Concordat authority. They were diplomatically undermining its entire basis. Every demonstration of capability, every hint of advanced knowledge, systematically dismantled the assumption of Concordat superiority. You understand, Vex Terra said carefully, that accepting such a proposal would be unprecedented. Progress usually is, Chen replied. The question is whether the Concordat can adapt to change, or if you'll cling to protocols that clearly didn't anticipate a civilization like ours. As the council members communicated in their private frequencies, unaware that the Horizon's sensors could detect even these exchanges, humanity's representatives waited patiently. They had prepared for this moment for 3 years, ready to demonstrate that Earth would not be patronized, controlled, or guided. The galaxy was about to change, whether the Concordat was ready or not. The emergency alert interrupted the 4th day of diplomatic negotiations. The crystalline walls of the council chamber shifted from their usual elegant patterns to an urgent red pulse as data streamed in from the Rigel sector. A nearby star was showing signs of imminent nova, threatening 3 inhabited worlds that lay within its blast radius. The evacuation protocols are clear, Vex Terra announced, her crystalline form vibrating with concern. We can save approximately 60% of the population using our entire available fleet. The remaining 40%, she left the implications hanging in the air. Dr. Chen watched the holographic simulations with growing intensity. The Concordat's evacuation calculations were mathematically sound, based on centuries of experience with similar crises. They were also, from a human perspective, completely unimaginative. What about the Mendari? She asked, referring to one of the threatened species. Their atmospheric processors could be modified to create a temporary shield, couldn't they? Impossible, one of the council's scientific advisors declared. The energy requirements would be manageable, Chief Engineer Tanaka interrupted, her fingers dancing across her quantum interface. If we reconfigure the Horizon's antimatter core to serve as a power source. The engineering team had already begun running simulations. The council chamber erupted in multiple frequencies of protest. The idea of using an antimatter core in such proximity to populated worlds was unprecedented, reckless by Concordat standards. But Chen noticed that the Mendari representative's sensory appendages were twitching with interest. The Horizon wasn't designed for this kind of operation, Vex Terra pointed out. The Horizon wasn't designed for anything conventional, Chen replied. That's rather the point. Ambassador Rodriguez, how long would it take to get authorization? Rodriguez was already ahead of her, communicating with Earth through the ship's quantum array. The UN Security Council is in emergency session. Given the humanitarian nature of the crisis, We'll have approval within the hour. The Concordat Council watched in stunned silence as the human delegation shifted from diplomatic negotiations to crisis response. The careful power plays of the previous days were forgotten as Chen's team demonstrated why humanity had sent not just diplomats, but their finest scientists and engineers on this mission. "We'll need help from the Mendari engineers," Tanaka announced, projecting a complex series of modifications. "Their understanding of atmospheric manipulation is crucial. And the Concordat's fleet will need to modify their shields to accommodate the power transfer." "This is not protocol," Vexterra protested, but with noticeably less conviction. "The risk factors are acceptable compared to losing 40% of 3 populations," Chen finished. "We're not asking permission, Supreme Counselor. We're offering assistance. The choice is yours." The next 40 hours were a blur of activity that shattered every preconception the Concordat had about human capabilities. The horizon moved into position, its massive form dwarfing even the Concordat's largest vessels. Tanaka's engineering team worked seamlessly with Mendari atmospheric specialists, combining technologies in ways neither species had imagined possible. When the star began its final phase, the combined shield system activated. The horizon's antimatter core poured energy into the modified atmospheric processors, creating a cascading barrier that diffracted the stellar explosion's worst effects. The sight of a 2-kilometer Earth ship holding position against a stellar nova, channeling enough power to protect 3 worlds, was one that would be remembered in Concordat records for centuries. "Incredible," the Mendari representative whispered as the danger passed. "We would never have conceived of such a solution." "That's humanity's greatest strength," Rodriguez explained quietly. "We don't accept impossible situations. We adapt, we innovate, and we find a way through." The crisis had lasted less than 2 standard days, but its implications would resonate far longer. The Concordat had witnessed not just human technology, but human decision-making in action. Where their protocols called for acceptable losses, humanity had refused to accept any losses at all. Where their experience said something was impossible, humans had simply found a different approach. As the emergency response teams began standing down, Chen noticed a change in how the council members regarded her delegation. The patronizing tolerance was gone, replaced by something that looked very much like respect. "Perhaps," Vexterra said carefully, "we should resume our discussions about partnership on a somewhat different footing." Chen smiled. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth wasn't through careful diplomacy or technological displays, but through simple, decisive action. Humanity had come to the stars to forge its own path, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy a new way forward. 3 months after the Rigel crisis, the Grand Chamber of the Concordat looked very different. The crystalline walls still soared overhead, but now they displayed a rotating collection of art from various species, including several pieces from Earth. The carefully tuned acoustics had been adjusted to accommodate a wider range of communication styles. Most notably, the hierarchical seating arrangement had been replaced by a circular configuration that put all species on equal footing. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the newly formed Galactic Cooperation Council, which had replaced the old Concordat hierarchy. She was presenting the final draft of what was being called the Terra Protocols, a new framework for interstellar relations that emphasized cooperation over control. "The recent crisis taught us all something valuable," she began. "The galaxy is too vast and too complex for any one species or system to have all the answers. True progress comes from combining different perspectives and approaches." Supreme Counselor Vexterra, now serving as one of several equal council facilitators, nodded in agreement. The events surrounding the Horizon's arrival had fundamentally changed her view of how species should interact. "The old protocols assumed that development followed a fixed path," she acknowledged. "Humanity has proven that assumption dangerously limited." The changes went far beyond politics. The sharing of human quantum technology had revolutionized interstellar communication. The Mendari had combined their atmospheric manipulation techniques with Earth's energy management systems to create new environmental protection technologies. Even the traditionally isolationist Zraxis, after learning of humanity's role in the Rital crisis, had begun discussions about ending their self-imposed quarantine. The Horizon Project was born from a simple message telling us to wait our turn, Rodriguez remarked during the session, but it became something much more. A demonstration that progress doesn't have to follow predetermined patterns. Innovation can come from challenge, from necessity, from the simple desire to prove what's possible. The council chamber's displays showed the changes already spreading through known space. The rigid hierarchies that had dominated galactic society for millennia were giving way to more dynamic, collaborative relationships. Species previously dismissed as developing were being reevaluated, their unique perspectives and capabilities recognized as valuable contributions to the galactic community. We're receiving requests from 17 species for joint research projects, Dr. Tanaka reported. The combination of different technological approaches is yielding results that none of us could have achieved alone. The engineering section of the Horizon had become a hub for cross-species collaboration, with teams working on everything from improved faster-than-light travel to more efficient energy distribution systems. But perhaps the most profound change was in how species viewed themselves and their place in the cosmos. The arrival of humanity had shattered the comfortable assumptions of the galactic order. If one species could so dramatically exceed expectations, what other possibilities had been overlooked? The Terra protocols aren't just about changing how we interact, Chen explained to the council. They're about changing how we think about potential, both our own and that of others. Every species has something unique to offer, some perspective or capability that could be crucial to our collective future. As she spoke, news arrived from Earth. The success of the Horizon had inspired a new age of innovation and cooperation. Nations that had contributed to the project were now working together on other challenges, from environmental restoration to medical research. The ship had been built to make a statement to the galaxy, but it had ended up transforming humanity as well. We came to the stars to prove ourselves, Chen concluded, but we found something more valuable. The opportunity to be part of something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The true measure of civilization isn't in dominating others or following predetermined paths. It's in recognizing that the universe is vast enough for many kinds of greatness. The Council's approval of the Terra protocols was unanimous. As the session concluded, Shen found herself back at the viewport where she had first witnessed the Horizon's construction. The ship now served as a symbol of something its builders hadn't fully anticipated, not just humanity's capability, but the potential for all species to exceed their perceived limitations. Ready to head home? Rodriguez asked, joining her at the viewport. Chen smiled, watching as vessels of various species maneuvered around the Horizon, their crews working together on new joint projects. Not just yet, she replied. I think we're only beginning to understand what we started here. The message that had once dismissed Earth as developing was now preserved in the Council archives as a reminder. No species' potential should ever be underestimated. Humanity had come to the stars to demand respect, but they had achieved something far more significant. They had changed the very nature of how civilizations viewed progress, cooperation, and possibility. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest achievement of all.